What does the term mean to you in a 2009 sense that you wrote this article for The Nation?
Well, here's what, mentally flummoxes me quite a bit about this. In 1848, say, when Marx and Engels were writing the Communist Manifesto, they thought that, hey, capitalism has been pretty nifty. It really, create all these factories, producing all this stuff. All we have to do now is get the workers to take over those, quote, means of production, and distribute things in a better way. They thought the basic problems of not enough, of scarcity, had been solved by industrial capitalism. Now, 200 or whatever it is years later, 150 years later.
A new scarcity.
Yeah, you look around and you say, no, not only did industrial capitalism not potentially abolish human need and scarcity, but it's created new forms of scarcity because of the environmental destruction that has been going on. And I don't just blame capitalism for the environmental destruction. I mean, Soviet-style communism made
terrible,
a huge contribution
even
to
worse
that. Yeah.
On the environment.
Okay, yeah. So that we're now, the idea of socialism was, well, let's just take things over, and we'll run it in a better way. Now you have to look around and say, it's more than that. It's deeper than that. We have to also go through some kind of change in our lifestyles, change in the way we live. This whole way of life is in question, not just this financial system.
So, listeners, if you are a self-defined socialist, this is your moment. Do you want to participate with Barbara Ehrenreich here in an exercise in reimagining a socialism for the new scarcity, for the environmental crisis, for the 21st century situation that we find ourselves in, for the Obama era? 212-433-WNYC, or post to WNYC.org. Click on Brian Lehrer Show. But our phone number, 212-433-9692, or anyone else may call. And you're obviously tough, Barbara, on the capitalists in your Nation magazine cover story, but you're also tough on socialists. Like, you repeat the joke about the socialist economist who correctly predicted 11 out of the last 3 recessions. Is that supposed to be a knock on, consistent socialist pessimism about where things are?
Well, yes. I mean, I've been hearing, I heard it one way or another going back 30 years as well. The present capitalism is in crisis. I give it 6 months, et cetera, et cetera. And, capitalism is amazingly dynamic. It latches on to innovations like the whole high-tech revolution. Then it got into this much more disastrous, business of being fueled by debt in the last 15 years or so. But, my feeling is, hey, maybe it will come back, It can. It's done that before. But right now, it's not working for us.
And you say, more importantly than the stop clock joke, you say socialists don't have a plan for dealing with this crisis. They don't?
No, I mean, I wish I could just reach into my pocket, Brian, and say, look, I've got the whole thing figured out. I don't. But socialism is not about me or some other, self-described socialist being smart enough to have such a plan. Socialism is just the idea that we all figure it out. You and me, all of us, everybody listening, that we all put our heads together. And that's kind of a revolutionary idea, because we've been coasting along with the notion that the market takes care of everything. And that's allows people to be very passive.
Right. But then why don't socialists, whoever these socialist leaders are, have a plan? Because after 70 years of being cast off into academia and maybe journalism or whatever, 20 years now since the end of the Eastern Bloc, and constant predictions that capitalism is on its last legs, wouldn't socialist thinkers be bursting with alternatives to the corrupt version of capitalism that's now exploding?
Oh, can I quote you? Corrupt version of capitalism now exploding. Yeah. I think there's been a lot going on. The people on the left, and not everybody is a self-described socialist. A lot of people would call themselves anarchists or, feminists or all sorts of things, have been we've taken it as our role to try to improve things for people who are poorer, for working class people within the capitalist system. That just has always seemed to me my job, is look at, the poverty, look at the working poor, what can be done about that. Now, wham, we did not expect capitalism to celebrate the 160th anniversary of the Communist Manifesto, which was last year, 2008, by shooting itself. And in a way, this is a, shall we say, a real surprise.
Corrupt, by the way, at least in the sense that those who are in charge of the financial sector were able to get into the government and lobby the government sufficiently that the controls on decent leverage ratios and risk ratios were taken off in the last few years. And there is tape of this. The New York Times did an investigative report and actually came up with audio, some of which we played on here, all of which you can hear on their site, that indicated an actual meeting of the Securities and Exchange Commission in 2004, where the regulators said, if we allow all these credit default swaps and all of that at the ratios that you're asking, there's going to be more risk. Are you really prepared to take that risk? Oh, yes, sir. We really think the economy can handle that risk. So, who really made those decisions? It was such an inside the Wall Street kind of regulatory system, inside the Wall Street bank's regulatory system, that, I don't think in that sense corrupt is too strong a word.